Hi, my name is Barby, and about 2 weeks ago, I had a seizure in my mom's car. So, I had never had a seizure before in my life. But I remember I left the nail salon, and I felt really weird. I looked at the ground, and it just didn't feel like it was actually there. Everything looked blurry. It looked like I was looking at it through one of those viewfinders, like when you were a kid, and you had those little prehistoric things, and somebody would put them in there, and you'd be like, oh, that's cool, but it wasn't really there. That was how I felt. This started a tumultuous week for me, in which I was kind of always nervous that I was going to have another seizure, and I would walk around and be like, oh my god, I think I'm getting an aura. That never really happened. So now that fear is kind of gone. I don't know why I'm saying that, but that felt like a good place to start. So recently I read a bunch of books. I read Ask for Andrea, and that was so forgettable. It was so average that I don't even know if I want to sit here and review it, because it was about close to 300 pages of, well, I mean, the premise is fine. It was about a bunch of girls, 3 girls, not a bunch. 3 is just 3. A bunch is like 5. Excuse that. It was about 3 girls who went after, in death, in the afterlife, they went after the guy who killed them, because they were all united by this one guy who killed them. Now, it turns out this guy has a whole ass family on the side. He has a wife, he has 2 kids. They all think of him like he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he's handsome and he's personable like Bundy. But that's about where the interesting stuff stops, because the 3 girls, apart from one of them being younger in high school, don't really have much that sets them apart. It's supposed to be chapters that alternate perspectives, but to tell you the truth, most of the time I didn't know who I was reading about. And I just don't think that's necessarily a good thing. Now, this lead guy who, you know, he's obviously supposed to be this handsome, like, everybody loves him type of man, like you would never think he would do anything wrong to anyone. But then he does. That's about it. That's how deep we go. We don't understand or know by the end of the book why he did these things. We know that the ghost girls help bring him to justice, which is cool and all, but that's the only thing that I know. I could not differentiate their personalities in the slightest. So anyways, I gave this 3 stars, but now that I'm thinking back on it, I don't really know if it deserves 3 stars. It might deserve 2, but sometimes I like just try to like take one thing and milk it all the way so I could higher your ratings, and I should really stop doing that. However, I just don't know for sure if I could say with full confidence that it was a 3-star book, because the fact that it's so painfully average that I couldn't tell you anything that really stood out about it is a bit of a problem. These girls, like I said, had no personality. There was only one. I don't even know how to pronounce her name. I believe it's like Brecia or something. It's spelled Brecia. Who I remember the most vividly. She had the most personality, but even that being said, I could not tell you one distinguishing thing about her. So that is what it is. But I did read a different one called The Cabin at the End of the World, which has been made into a movie called Knock at the Cabin, which I am going to talk about this with spoilers. So if you do not like spoilers, if you don't want to listen to me spoil the entire book for you, then maybe you shouldn't watch this video. Otherwise, keep going. Because most of this book is centered around the ending. A lot of people have a problem with Cabin at the End of the World because of the way that it abruptly ends. And in all fairness, the ending was abrupt. When it came up, I did not expect it to just end like that, but I was not dissatisfied and I was not unhappy about it. Some people don't like ambiguous endings because they want full closure. Well, sadly, honey, life does not work that way. Oftentimes, we are left in a state of uncertainty. And I feel that Paul Tremblay, who wrote this, captured that brilliantly. Now, mind you, I also read A Head Full of Ghosts about last year. I absolutely hated it. I thought it sucked. I gave it 2 stars. The only reason I gave it 2 stars was because it did have some moments that sucked me in and kept me reading. But it was so packed with pretension, and I still did not, at the end of the book, know if Marjorie, the older sister in question, was possessed, but I'm going off on a side tangent. So I thought The Cabin at the End of the World was a 5-star book. I thought it was wonderful. The entire plot is that these people break into this cabin where 2 dads are staying with their daughter for a family vacation. And they inform them that they have to choose either to sacrifice one of their own or the entire world is going to end. At first, these people don't really believe this, but then when you turn on the TV and it's plague after destruction, just like these intruders predicted, they kind of realize the gravity of their situation. So what ends up happening in the book is, like I said, I was going to spoil it, the little girl dies. Gwen dies, and it's not on purpose. Somebody shoots a gun and it hits her. So she is not the sacrifice because she did not die willingly. They did not choose to give her up. So now it's just these dads and their dead daughter, which is obviously traumatizing for anyone. And they either have to sacrifice one of themselves at this point because Gwen is gone, or the world is going to end. So the way that Paul Tremblay ended the book was that he sent them out. They're about to kill themselves, they're about to kill each other, and then in the end they put down their guns, they hold hands, and they just walk away into the abyss, ready to face whatever that means. Because they already lost their world. They already lost their world when their daughter died. And if that is not the most profound thing I have ever heard, like, I just don't even know. There are often times when people on Goodreads will give something like 1 star, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this has a lot of bad reviews, and I expect to hate it, but then I don't. And that this was definitely one of those times, especially since the first work of his that I read was such a letdown for me. I genuinely thought this was going to be another one of those times, but it wasn't. I loved every second of it. I think that's the way it should have ended, and I am aware that the theatrical retelling of it does have a definitive ending, that they changed that they did give it a definitive ending, and I really don't know if they should have, because that was heavy hitting. And the thing about horror is that it's not supposed to comfort you. And I feel like a lot of people these days want you to hold their hands and just bring them to the happy fairy tale ending. But this is not fairy tale shit. If you really think about it, how could that end well? It was a theoretical question. You're supposed to question yourself. You're supposed to question what you would do. So it frustrates me that everybody wants their ending wrapped up in a neat little bow. Because you're just not going to get that with this book. But if you want to be genuinely uncomfortable and scared and heartbroken, because I believe she was 9 years old, but I could be mistaken. She's young. She is definitely between the ages of 7 and 9, I believe. She might even be 6, but that doesn't matter. I don't remember. The fact is she was much too young to die, especially in such a way. And the fact that her death doesn't even count towards the ultimate ending, that's devastating. Like, they lost their daughter, and they weren't even done. Like, it was either the world was going to end or they had to give up one of themselves. If that's not horrific, I don't know what is. And I don't know what everybody else is looking for in their ending. Some people can't handle their questions being unanswered. And if you can't, this isn't the book for you, and you're going to give it a really angry review on Goodreads, probably with 2 stars. And I'm going to staunchly disagree with you and argue with you in the comments section, because that's what I do best.